Now, when it comes to Lawbries and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbry in Gentleland, I could dig rapping, but a rapper with a ghostwriter, what the F happened? The Gaveling Graham got a glimmer of guilt as ghostwriting rumors rummaged his already ruined reputation for writing. The Courthouse Karen got caught with Quentin Miller many millenniums ago, but maintained his mission of making the most massive manufacturing sweatshop in music. And today, the teenage fever freaky frontlining phony Montana Marilyn Monroe ho might have been exposed for more ghostwriting, or it all might be hoax writing. Now drop a like and subscribe for my dope writing. Now this is a sad day, Lawbries and Gentlegrams, but much to your surprise, I will actually be defending Drake in certain aspects of this video today, because there are some brand new ghostwriting rumors, but I'm holding out hope that they're complete cap. And at this point, we do not have enough proof to say they're real. But of course, we're going to break everything down. Let's first peel this thing back layer by layer, because obviously Lawbry has a long history of using ghostwriters, underpaying them. And if he's not using ghostwriters, he's stealing other people's melodies, flows, lyrics, sometimes literally bar for bar. I have a whole video I'm going to be dropping soon where we dissect many instances where Lawbry is blatantly stealing rhymes and melodies from other artists, and these other artists calling him out, because this has been happening since the beginning of his career. But in this video, we'll mainly focus on his history with reference tracks. Obviously, reference tracks are when you have an artist recording a sort of skeleton version of a song for another artist. Now, to Drake's credit, we have seen him do this for other artists, mainly Kanye West. This is him recording Kanye's song Yikes. Menacing, frightening, find help, I scare myself. And as you could see, Drake's version is attacked from a whole different perspective, right? Like, the melody is slowed down, the vocal inflections are different, the lyrics are different at some points, there's a pre-chorus which Kanye didn't include in the final version, and that's what a reference track is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be you kind of concocting a demo or a rough version of a song, and then another artist takes what you did, flips it, makes it their own, makes it original, and makes a final product out of it. This is very big in like the pop and the R&B world, right? A lot of big artists have a ghostwriter. Some rappers even started off as ghostwriters, like Tory Lanez came in the game writing hooks for artists like Travis Scott, even Akon, August Alsina. So it's the standard and it's accepted within R&B and pop. But when it comes to hip-hop, or when it really just breaks down or boils down to calling yourself a great writer, right? Hip-hop or not, if you take pride in your penmanship, regardless of the genre, it adds a certain blemish to your background if it's later revealed that someone else was writing your stuff for you. Now, with Drake, he kind of blurs the line between an R&B artist, a pop artist, and a hip-hop artist, right? So before we actually get into, every ghostwriting rumor Drake was exposed for, let's actually break it down from the perspective of, is ghostwriting a bad look for Drake considering the type of artist he is? Well, if he's a pop star, then that's standard protocol, right? And he literally has a song called Pop Star. He raps on a song with 2 Chainz saying, got the Billboard melodies, rap is something I do on the side, crossed over to the other side, and I didn't even have to die. This was during the Views era where we got some of Drake's most pop sounding hits. One Dance, Controlla, Too Good, Child's Play, like these were all repetitive, formulaic, poppy hits. And I think we could categorize Drake's music into 4 categories. The R&B records, the pop records, the bangers, and the timestamp records. And I'm doing this to emphasize how bad it would be if the music from one of these 4 categories was written by a ghostwriter. Can you guess which one that would be? Well, let's go through them. You have the pop records, right? Again, like I said before, it's very standard that a Billie Eilish or a Rihanna or a Katy Perry would have someone writing their music with them or for them. And Drake, of course, is the Canadian Katy Perry. So with his pop records, you could say it's permissible that, he has some help on the writing side of things. Then with the R&B records, I think it's a little more frowned upon because those records are usually a little more personal. Think like a Marvin's Room or a Shot for Me. But we know since the beginning of Drake's career, he's both had people writing R&B records for him and he's written R&B records for other people. Think about The Weeknd writing the majority of the R&B records off of Take Care. Or think of Drake writing R&B records for Jamie Foxx like Fall For Your Type, or Unthinkable by Alicia Keys, or I'm Single by Lil Wayne, or R.I.P. by Rita Ora. Like, there are plenty of instances of Drake writing R&B records. So if he really approaches it as this quote-unquote collaborative process, like he says he does, where, there's other artists in the studio, they're bouncing ideas off each other, sometimes he takes inspiration from them, sometimes vice versa, they take inspiration from him, then fine, Chris Brown in the mid-2000s was one of my favorite R&B artists, and he got a lot of help on some of his biggest hits. I don't think that takes as much away from him, but you do have this nasty pattern, which was very evident on Take Care, of the artists that end up collaborating with Drake not being too happy with how the final product turns out. We saw this with The Weeknd, right? The Weeknd felt like he was robbed of some of his most important songs. Songs like Shot For Me, songs like Good Ones Go, Crew Love, Doing It Wrong, I believe, was also written by The Weeknd. Like, this was when he was first entering the game, right? During his House of Balloons era, that was his first mixtape. And Drake took a lot of the songs that were meant for that project and just slapped them onto Take Care. Just sung over The Weeknd's vocals. Sometimes he featured The Weeknd in the background or doing the hook. But ultimately, Take Care was a massive look and a step up for Drake. It wasn't as much of a spotlight for The Weeknd. He very much played a backseat. So much so to the point that people thought The Weeknd was one of Drake's artists. And then 15 years later, he's on records thanking God he never sold his life away. So it says a lot about how a lot of Drake's collaborators behind the scenes, not the ones that we see, not the Nicki Minaj's and the Lil Waynes, Drake did a lot of collaborations with them, but it was always an equal playing field. I'm talking about the writers who are deeply behind the scenes, in the trenches, in those OVO sweatshops, ghostwriting for Drake. A lot of those guys don't ever truly seem satisfied. So it's not just the problem of it's bad that Drake as an artist gets all this credit but doesn't actually write his rhymes. What's even worse is the fact that the guys behind the scenes who are writing the music aren't getting their just due, aren't getting their proper credit, and are being mistreated. We could see that with the next category of Drake records, the bangers, right? These are the rap tracks that aren't necessarily bar heavy, the non-stops, the 10 bands, 0 to 100. In my opinion, some of Drake's best records are done in this subgenre where he's just talking crazy. It's an aggressive, hard-hitting beat. He's got an energetic hook, quotables all throughout the verses. Songs like We Made It, Trophies, Believe Me, Underground Kings, Worst Behavior. And when you think of this subgenre for Drake, you really think, if you're reading this, it's too late. That was the project where he completely pivoted from the more softer, darker R&B records to basically straight bangers for a 20-song track list. Come to find out, of course, that, to this day, we actually still don't know what percentage of that track list wasn't actually written by Drake, but we know that a lot of it wasn't. We could go through what we already know. The first song, the intro, Legend, was written by PARTYNEXTDOOR. The second song, and the third song, and the fourth song, and I think even the fifth song, Energy, 10 Bands, Know Yourself, and No Telling, I believe were all written by Quentin Miller. That's the first 5 songs of this project. The 10th song is a solo PARTYNEXTDOOR song. The 11th song is Used To featuring Lil Wayne, which I believe was also written by Quentin Miller. Six Man is the 12th song. I believe that was also written by Quentin Miller. Company featuring Travis Scott, I believe was also written by Quentin Miller. So out of the 17 songs on this project, 10 of them were not written by Drake. Allegedly, of course. That's over half the project, and definitely the most memorable songs off the project that simply weren't written by Drake. Of course, this got exposed throughout his beef with Meek Mill when Meek decided to tweet about it, and the part that sucks is the guy behind the scenes, Quentin Miller, was never fully able to form a full-fledged career or identity in the industry of his own after all this controversy. Drop a comment if you want a full documentary on his come up, his whole story, his actual association with Drake, where he is now. I've been wanting to do this story for a long time. I think it's definitely worth telling. But yeah, like I said before, right? It's not just the fact that Drake was having someone else write his records behind the scenes that was bad. It was the fact that these people behind the scenes writing these songs were always treated poorly, or if Drake had his way, they were left in the dust. That's why The Weeknd says, I thank God I never signed my life away, because if he did, he'd be locked up in that OVO sweatshop giving his biggest hits away to Drake. We're getting sidetracked here though. So the 4 subgenres of Drake, right? So the pop records, the one dances, controllers, etc. That's normal, that's standard for, a pop artist to get help on songs like that in that genre. So, okay, we'll scratch that. The R&B records. We know that Drake writes R&B records for other people. So, if he gets a little help on his as well, whatever, it is what it is. Then you got the bangers that make up the majority of the track lists of projects like If You're Reading This Is Too Late, or Her Loss, or, well, that's really it. The other ones are muddied with stretched out track lists and a bunch of filler. But that type of subgenre, it took people a long time to accept the fact that Drake had help on those records. Some people still don't accept that fact. The way I look at it is, for me, If You're Reading This Is Too Late, it was devastating to hear that he got a bunch of help on it. That project came out in my graduating year of high school, and just because of how, energetic, how fun of a project it was, it's always been my favorite Drake project. It could be nostalgia, whatever it is. I love that project. And that's why I'm so disappointed that we're getting the type of music we are from Drake today, where it seems like for the most part, he's kept the same formula, but lost 90% of the inspiration, of the energy behind these songs. And at this point, I look at Drake like a pop star, right? He'll never be, the greatest rapper alive in my eyes. So in my personal opinion, with these more, club-focused records, in my eyes, I'm like, I loved If You're Reading This Is Too Late so much. Yes, it put a blemish on his legacy, the fact that they were written by a ghostwriter. But at this point, I would take ghost-written, strong club bangers over the half-baked music that we get from Drake today. If it takes a ghostwriter for Drake to concoct music on the level of If You're Reading This Is Too Late, I'll take that any day over him penning up his own songs that are sexy, sleepy, lullaby love music. You can miss me with that. I'll take ghostwriter Drake coming with some bangers over the balding, bearded BBL belligerent buffoon that we hear in the booth today. But now that just leaves one subgenre of Drake music, right? The R&B records, the pop records, the bangers, and then you have the timestamp records. Those have always been Drake's most personal records. Drake is on record stating that a record like that he can never get help with because it's a direct reflection of where he's at in life. That's why they're timestamp records. It's literally where he is in that present moment, reflecting on everything going on throughout his career, throughout his life, etc. How could you get someone else to write that? Well, leave it to Drake. Of course, he'll find a way. But before we get into that, Lawbreeds and Gentlegrams, I gotta tell you guys about something that, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true. All right, let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions are super easy. Usually you just got to download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. Now, here's some poetic justice for you, and I'm not talking about the collaboration between Drake and Kendrick. What I'm talking about is a couple months before Drake was exposed for carrying Quentin Miller around like a pocket penman, Kendrick released To Pimp a Butterfly, where he had a track called King Kunta, and on that track he rapped, "I could dig rapping, but a rapper with a ghostwriter, what the F happened?" Now, if you're young, you probably don't remember, but Kendrick and Drake were actually trading subliminals at each other ever since Control, with some shots being very obvious. Kendrick rapping, "Nothing's been the same since they dropped Control," and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. Like, that was obviously about Drake. Drake had a verse on the remix to Future's song with the word I can't say on YouTube. It's the synonym of poo, the S word, essentially. Yeah, he had a song there talking about, I took you on my tour, then I took my tour to your city, or my son there. Whatever, these were blatant, obvious subliminals. But when Kendrick rapped, "I could dig rapping, but a rapper with a ghostwriter, what happened?" no one knew what that was about. Until Drake got hit with the Rico. Not the literal Rico, but the song Rico with Drake and Meek Mill was actually written by Quentin Miller. Meek found out, trigger fingers turned to Twitter fingers, and the rest is history. Now, if Meek Mill wasn't half asleep during that beef, that would have been the end of Drake. That allegation alone, I mean, on a side note, it's crazy how many unprecedented things Drake has done throughout his entire career. First rapper to hit the top of the Billboard charts from Canada. First rapper to go #1 with R&B songs and with hip-hop songs. First rapper to get exposed for having a ghostwriter and still being able to bounce back from it. First rapper to be exposed for having a kid, maybe? First rapper to be exposed for possibly liking kids, maybe? Allegedly. Drake is not a PDF as far as we know. And I'm not implying that he is, but the most unprecedented thing Drake has ever done throughout his career is obviously being the first rapper to file a lawsuit over a diss track. But way back in 2015, the most unprecedented thing we had seen in Drake's career was the fact that the majority of his most hip-hop focused album was written by someone else. And Kendrick obviously didn't like that because way before the world ever even knew about this, Kendrick was already rapping about it, saying, what the F happened? We know how much value Kendrick puts in writing your own lyrics, into your own penmanship. I mean, the first time he ever collaborated with Eminem locked him in the studio, no one else there, and said, all right, write to this. Because he damn near didn't believe that Kendrick was actually writing his own stuff all by himself. Eminem has also gone on record saying that, if you're not writing your own bars, what are you actually rapping for? If these thoughts aren't yours, why are you rapping them? What's the point? Well, like we said before, right? Drake is a borderline pop star, or basically he is a pop star. He's not really a rapper at this point, right? So these club-centric bangers that, are still more hip-hop leaning, at the end of the day, are they really hip-hop or are they just pop songs, popular songs? Pop music just means popular music. It doesn't necessarily fit into some category. And his rap bangers, like a Sicko Mode, Nonstop, whatever the case is, these are pop songs. These are popular songs on the Billboard charts, in the clubs, on the radio, etc. But there's that other subgenre, the timestamp records, right? And how fitting is it that right when Drake started beefing with Kendrick, an onslaught of new reference tracks started to leak. And they're from a couple different eras, and I'd categorize most of them, for the most part, in the, bangers category. But there was one record that teetered too close to being a timestamp-esque record. And what I mean by that was, it wasn't called like a, 7 p.m. in Monaco or whatever, 6 a.m. in Diddyland. No, this was most definitely a banger. But in terms of when it came out and the subject matter that it touched on, it definitely seemed that this was a song Drake was using to directly convey a message about how he felt, what was going on in his life, and responding to some controversy that was surrounding him at the time. So there were 3 different reference tracks that leaked, right? There was Jumbotron Poppin', which was written by Lil Yachty. We know that Lil Yachty had a big hand in the writing or creative direction of Drake and 21's collab album, Her Loss. So while it's not very respectable that Yachty was writing full-fledged songs on this project, I guess it kind of makes sense. He was very involved in the studio at that time. We also had Ratchet Happy Birthday, which was written by PARTYNEXTDOOR. We know Party has written a lot of songs for Drake. I'm going to be dropping a video very soon on Joe Budden and Drake's back and forth, but Joe Budden spoke on this on a diss track damn near 10 years ago, saying, where's Party album? You took all of Party's album to put it on your own Party album. And that's what I mean, and that's what The Weeknd means when he said, thank God I never saw my life away. There's a duality behind Drake's ghostwriting where it's not just bad that Drake has ghostwriters working on his songs, it's the fact that all of these artists who ghostwrite for Drake can never form full-fledged, prosperous careers of their own. They're always living behind Drake's shadow. Now, the other problem is the fact that earlier in this video, I played you guys Drake recording the reference track for Kanye West's song, Yikes. Did you notice how different the production, the melody, the hook, the verses, everything was about that Drake song versus the Kanye West final version? They sounded like 2 completely different songs. When you hear a Drake reference track, in my opinion, the biggest problem is that both the bars and the melodies are always basically word for word the exact same thing. Drake barely replaces anything. Aside from you recognizing his signature voice, and maybe that's what would make you gravitate towards the song, what other qualities of the song besides that would make you listen to Drake's record, or Drake's version of it, over the original ghostwritten version? I can't play it here because obviously, copyright and all that, but go look up Quentin Miller 10 Bands, then go listen to Drake 10 Bands. Do the same thing for all the songs I named earlier in this video. Know Yourself, Rico, etc. They all sound exactly the same. Quentin Miller laid not just the foundation, but the exact melody, the exact hook word for word, and Drake just copy-pasted his own vocals onto it. And that was the biggest problem, right? Is Drake tries to frame this as a collaborative process. Maybe he's in the studio with someone, they're talking about a certain situation, and both of them together come up with the subject matter of the song. They're both harmonizing, adding their different melodies to the record, and eventually becomes this duet sort of thing where both of them contributed, but ultimately it's a shared product. No, this is more like people are handing Drake written hip-hop records, and he's changing the bare minimum. And at this point, right, throughout the timeline we're talking about, we're still in 2024 during the Drake and Kendrick beef. At this point, so many diss records have come out that this wasn't even the most damaging thing to Drake's career at that moment, right? We're so immune to already seeing Drake damn near copy-pasting other people's songs and claiming them as his own that it was nothing. But there was one record that stood out, one record that crossed the line for even most of his biggest glazers, right? And that would be Mob Ties. If you guys don't know what Mob Ties is, it's a song on Scorpion. Scorpion initially was supposed to be mainly an R&B album. There's 2 sides to the project. Side A is more hip-hop focused, side B is more R&B focused. Drake released this project about a month after beefing with Pusha T. He claims that initially the album was just R&B, but after the beef went down and Jay Prince, his boss, basically, told him, drop out of this beef for the greater good of your own career, Drake dropped out, but Scorpion Side A was full of subliminals, and all those records, according to Drake, were written after the beef occurred and out of inspiration for what went down, and basically Drake just telling his side of the story on how things ended and where he's kind of at. Mob Ties was the centerpiece to that whole story. Sure, it was a club banger. Sure, the song structure was pretty simple in terms of the hook, it was pretty repetitive. Sick of these guys, hire some help, get rid of these guys, whatever you did, I'm so tired, I F with the mob, but I got ties, whatever. Simplistic song, but very powerful in terms of where Drake was at and the message it was trying to convey. This was Drake basically expressing, after that battle took place, that, his mob ties, Jay Prince and all them, had Drake take a step back. But he's still saying, there's no forgiveness on this end. There's no making amends. I'm stronger than ever. I'm on this other side with my family, with my mob, and there's this line in the sand. Now, the reason I say that this song teeters between being a timestamp record and a club record is because it most definitely can be played in the club, in the whip. It's a banger, and it follows the structure and the overall sound of a lot of previous Drake bangers. But at the same time, it does find Drake opening up to an extent about the current situation, his headspace, where he's at, everything that went down, and how he'll be moving in the future. There is some personality or substance to the song. Ironically, Akademiks had an interview 4 days before the reference track of the song leaked, specifically naming this song as a direct example of a song that he would be unforgiving if he found out was not actually written by Drake. But then sure enough, 4 days later, the reference track comes out. It was written by an artist by the name of Vori, and in my opinion, this was by far the worst reference track we've ever heard from Drake. Not in terms of quality. The song actually sounded great. The reference track sounded great. I mean, this was the worst look for Drake. Not only was this song serving as sort of a comeback song for Drake, or at least part of this comeback album to redeem himself from the L he had just taken to Pusha T, not only was this song meant to reflect where he was at and, reflect real genuine emotion of, why he still feels victorious, why he still has that confidence, even though he just took that loss. Not only did the reference track leak at the height of the Drake and Kendrick beef, but the worst part of all is that if you actually go listen to this reference track, this is not just someone, laying down some demo vocals. This is not someone, writing some generic clatchy club banger with the specific intent of, shopping it around to different record labels, seeing if someone will pick up on it to get some recognition or get a foot into the industry. Because that's what a lot of up-and-coming artists do, right? Is they'll write these demo songs, they'll shop them around in the industry and let a major artist actually sing it. Those songs are meant to be, given to someone else. They're meant to be reference tracks. That artist is meant to be the ghostwriter for basically any artist. Like, the messaging in those songs are generic enough where they could fit the life of a lot of different artists. It's very vague. This Mob Ties record was the complete opposite. It was exactly specific to Drake's situation, what was going on at the time, and it wasn't like Vori kind of did these half-baked vocals. Vori, the ghostwriter of this record, was completely doing the exact same harmonies as Drake, singing his freaking soul out, rapping these bars with a passion. Like, this wasn't like Quentin Miller monotonously singing the chorus because he knows that he's just going to hand this off to Drake and Drake will, sing it with passion. Vori was singing this song with most definite passion, but at the same time, the lyrics are so, related to Drake's situation at the time. That's why you thought no way in hell could he have had someone else write this song. And I think that's the most deranged part of this whole thing, right? Is that we've gotten to the point in Drake's career where he's literally having artists sing these reference tracks melody for melody. It's gone to the point where it's not just a skeleton that Drake adds, his own creative twist to. It's like everything from the exact vocal inflections on every single bar of the song are done to a T for Drake to just copy paste his own voice into. But at the same time, the lyrics of the song are painted in a way where they describe Drake's exact life. It's almost like he has a team of writers in the OV Host Sweatshop literally concocting songs that tell the stories of his own life, sung in the exact way he's about to sing them. And again, all he does is then just go into the booth and copy paste his own vocals. This stretches far beyond just being a simple reference track. This is literally someone else bearing the responsibility of maintaining and building Drake's own artistic identity. And this is just what we know, right? Imagine all the other dozens and dozens of songs that we've never heard before from the OV Host Sweatshop that very well maybe were never written by Drake, but tell his exact story down to a T. Well, there's been a couple examples, or at least a couple rumors. Again, I'm going to give Drake the benefit of the doubt here because if this is true, this is very, very bad. Like, every day you think there's no way Drake could do something worse. But with every new day comes a new ghost-written verse. Before we get into the main one of today, the one that came out most recently, I'm not sure if you guys remember, I did a video way back in like June of last year, where basically, if you guys remember the story of how his first diss track, Push Ups, was released, it was very suspicious, right? So Akademiks was on stream, and all of a sudden, commotion erupts as this random song hits the internet that sounds like it could be AI, sounds like maybe Drake was just recording like a rough version of it. The beat was unfinished, the vocals were very robotic, monotonous, and definitely unfinished. And it was called Push Ups. It was basically the same exact song that we ended up hearing that's on Spotify and all these streaming platforms, but it was a little bit different, right? The vocals were not just not crispy, they also sounded lifeless, almost like he was just kind of reading lyrics off of a paper. The song sounded like it was mastered, but there was something weird between the way the vocals meshed with the beat. Something was definitely off. At the very least, this was a reference track, and at the most, maybe something fishy was going on here, which we'll touch on in a second. But quickly after Drake realized that this song had leaked, he then sent Akademiks the official version, which has Akademiks vocals all over it, and a couple bars were changed, and the beat was definitely changed, and his vocals sounded like they had more life to them, no pun intended. Then we get Euphoria by Kendrick, where he raps, "Am I battling ghosts or AI?" And on Push Ups, Drake was talking about a 20v1. On Euphoria, Kendrick flipped that and said, "It's not a 20v1, it's a 1v20 if I gotta slap the guys that write with you." Well, we know that way back in 2015, Kendrick most definitely knew on To Pimp a Butterfly, months before it was exposed to the world, that Drake was using ghostwriters. When he rapped, but a rapper with a ghostwriter, what the F happened? So was Kendrick simply referencing the fact that, 10 years ago, Drake got exposed for having ghostwriters? Or was there something bigger at play when he rapped, "Am I battling ghosts or AI?" Well, someone who's very close to Kendrick, who grew up in the same city as him, and I believe was a mentor to Kendrick, or at least closely connected to Kendrick's camp when Kendrick was on the come up. This was someone Kendrick even shouted out either during one of his Grammy acceptance speeches or during his recent Apple Music interview. I forget which one, but he goes by the name of Glasses Malone. You guys have probably heard of him. On a side note, he was shortly signed to Cash Money for a very short period of time, and I believe he received one of, if not the best, Lil Wayne feature verse of all time with the song Haters. So drop a comment if you know that song. But Glasses made a very interesting point when this whole battle was said and done, and it was about the song Push Ups. So again, almost a week before Drake put that song on streaming platforms, an unfinished version leaked, which sounded very robotic. Some people thought it might have been AI. Glass's theory, or possibly what he knows from being connected within the industry and just not wanting to actually reveal this as truth, to not expose anyone, but, putting it up in the air as if it's some sort of fan theory, he basically said that he believes someone ghost wrote that song, slapped Drake AI vocals on top of it, and then sent it to Drake as a reference track. Why they would do that is obviously because A, Drake can now see what the song should sound like using his voice, all the vocal inflections, the flows, etc. But also, Drake being exposed for having a ghostwriter at the height of this battle and using that ghostwriter to concoct these diss records would automatically put the biggest stain in his reputation that his career has ever seen. So if he was using ghostwriters to concoct these diss tracks, he'd have to do it in an extremely careful way. And what better way to do it, what better way to disguise that you're using a ghostwriter than to slap your own vocals onto a reference track? This way, even if the song does sound like a reference track, which the initial version of Push Ups did, no one would ever expect that it was someone else who wrote it, or that these lyrics were initially performed by someone else and they just put your vocals on top of it. It's disguised as you. It's literally like putting a sheet on top of your kid and calling him a ghost for Halloween. Like, you can't get more Casper the Canadian Courthouse Karen gavel guzzling Graham ghost than that. Genius play to hide your ghostwriters. Check out what Glasses Malone had to say.
I really think a writer leaked the first version of Push Ups. Like, a writer pitched it to him. They wrote the song and they did it in the AI. They pitched their voice for AI so they could use his inflections, and then they pitched their voice to Drake's voice using AI. So they sent him the version of the record that they wrote. He took it, covered it, and then finished the production at that excellent level that OVO does.
Now, I'm not stating this as fact. This is, again, just Glasses' theory. Glasses definitely does have, ties to the industry, so maybe he heard this as fact, but doesn't want to be the one to, whistleblow. So he's stating it as if it's just, some thought that he had. I could tell you that Push-Ups track that initially came out definitely sounded like AI, definitely sounded robotic, definitely sounded like a demo version. Is it completely out of the realm of possibilities, knowing Drake's history, that someone else recorded that song and wrote it for him and then just slapped his vocals on it? Not at all. We've seen what Kanye's done with AI. We've seen what plenty of other artists have done. The capabilities of AI, definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. But you could see that Drake continuously checks the boxes for, crossing over to each genre and using ghostwriters to conquer each one of them, right? First with the pop songs, we saw PARTYNEXTDOOR write a bunch of those. Then with the R&B records, we also saw PARTYNEXTDOOR write a couple of those. Majid Jordan as well wrote Just Hold On, We're Going Home. The Weeknd wrote Half a Take Care. He's had a lot of help with those R&B songs. And then with the bangers as well, leave that to Quentin Miller, leave that to Lil Yachty, leave that to Vori if you want to consider Mob Ties more of a club banger than a timestamp type record. But now we get to the timestamp type records, right? So he's teetering the line here where there's damn near rumors that even his diss tracks were written by someone else. But the one redeeming quality that he has is he created this signature series where he slaps a time and a country or a city onto a record and basically gives you his perspective on life during that time. The timestamp records. He invented this, and this is a great addition to his catalog. Probably the most redeeming quality he has as an actual rapper is the fact that on these 4-minute songs, he'll get on the beat and just spit for 4 straight minutes about whatever's going on in his life. No hook, no catchy melodies. This is not for the radio, but they'll still play it though because it's that New Jersey Drake. That's just the way it go. But Lobries and Gentlegrams, today might be the day that Drake finally checks that final box off of his reference track resume, as we may have just heard the first reference track of a timestamp record. And it's not just any timestamp record, it's the best one in Drake's catalog, arguably. 5 a.m. in Toronto. This was in 2012. This was at the peak of Drake's career, in my opinion. The peak of his rapping capabilities, his passion, his energy, his bars. Everything was at a top tier level during this era. And this song contains some of Drake's best bars. I could load every gun with bullets that fire backwards. Probably wouldn't lose a single rapper. People make threats, can't hear him over the laughter. I'm headed to the bank. Sinatra lifestyle. I'm just being frank with you. I mean, where you think she at when she ain't with you? Wildin', doing stuff that's way out of your budget. Owl sweaters inside her luggage. You gotta love it. Give these guys the look, the verse, and even the hook. That's why every song sound like Drake featuring Drake. Like, this song, again, contains some of his best bars. He was taking shots at everybody. That whole Sinatra lifestyle bar being about Chris Brown because, they were having a back and forth over Rihanna at the time. And he was saying, where you think she at when she ain't with you? And Chris Brown just got in a fight with Frank Ocean. And he's talking about Sinatra lifestyle. I'm just being frank with you. This was peak Drake to me. And the reason why I harbor so much, disdain towards his new music is because as a Canadian, I was such a fan when he first came in the game. And it's just been disappointment after disappointment for damn near the last decade now. But that's a story for a different day. Anyways, this song allegedly, apparently, was not written by Drake. Now, there's a reference track that came out. We don't know who actually recorded this reference track. There's no news aside from the fact that some Twitter account leaked the reference track. I'm going to try to play it if we don't get copyright stricken right here. Got us watching our words like they wiretapping the team. Couple album drop, still on the shelf. So if I can end up playing the song on this video, or even if I could, it came from the Twitter account named Vincent Pun 35511. Vincent is spelled Vincent. Pun is Pun, and then 35511. So you guys can go look it up on your own. They also leaked a supposed reference track of 4 p.m. in Calabasas, delivered vocally by the same individual, it sounds like at least. But these reference tracks, if they are reference tracks, just like Mob Ties, sound exactly like the version Drake actually spit. Like the delivery's the same, the bars are the same, cadence, flow, voice, vocal inflections, whatever, everything is the exact same as Drake spit on the final version. So this is leading a lot of people, even myself, to believe that this is probably some BS. Why do I think it's BS? Is because this dude has been engaging with Drake fans on Twitter over the last 24 hours and is seemingly ignoring all requests to actually drop the metadata of the song file. So essentially, we know the actual date that the file was created, because this song was released way back in like 2012, right? It'd be very easy for someone to simply re-record all the vocals and then pretend like they were the one who actually made the song and this was a reference track. Unless you have the metadata of the actual file, like when it was recorded, when it was finalized, you're not going to know which song came first, Drake's version or the one claiming to be the reference track. All this guy did was post the song. He didn't post a date. He didn't post what artist is actually singing the song, who the ghostwriter is. I'm reporting this to you guys as a rumor. Do I believe that this is really a Drake reference track? Honestly, I can't say I do. I think we've seen crazier things, and like the Mob Ties record, the reference track literally sounded like a cover of the track that Drake spit. Like, it didn't sound like a reference track. It sounded like Vori recorded it after. That's how similar the two were. So this could be a reference track just because it's as similar to Drake's version of 5 a.m. in Toronto as Vori's version of Mob Ties is to Drake's version. But I don't know, man. Like, this guy kind of just sounds like he's reading these lyrics off of paper. Like, it just sounds like, you know, he's reading Drake lyrics and then spitting them back. I mean, I do think this tweet sums it up perfectly. This guy said, Drake's PR team is absolutely cooked. All you have to do is record his lyrics on a $5 mic and people will actually believe you wrote it. Like, it does show how far down Drake's credibility as a writer has gone down the toilet, right? With all these reference tracks that have leaked, all it takes at this point is for someone to pull up a mic that is worse quality than the one I'm using right now and spit over his beat. And everyone on the internet will believe that it's really a Drake reference track. Like, that's how little artistic credibility he actually has at this point, which makes it crazy. But I don't know. To me, something is saying that this is not really a reference track. It can't be, right? This is the timestamp record. This is the one out of those 4 subgenres, the club bangers, the pop songs, the R&B songs, and the timestamps. These are the ones that Drake has always stood by to say he writes all of these. And how could someone else write it, right? Like, this is exactly related to his life. How is someone else making all these double entendres and these specific references to beefs and subliminals that are actually going on in Drake's career at that moment in 2012? Like, do you know how hard you'd have to study Drake as a person? Like, not just as an artist, but like what's going on in his personal life to know what to be talking about in these timestamp records to make it sound like they're from Drake's perspective when you were the one who wrote them. Like, it takes a lot more than just simply jotting down a bunch of lyrics like, 10 bands, 50 bands. Like, that's a whole different category of music, of hip hop, than these timestamp records. Someone else on Twitter said, that definitely sounds like Chapo. Like, the reference track sounds like this artist by the name of Chapo. He's a well-known ghostwriter. If you know, you know. Someone replied to that tweet saying, I just said that. Like, damn, that sounds like Chapo, SMH. And the guy said, I don't know if you followed him during the beef, but he was alluding to a few things. I don't follow this Chapo guy, but listen, it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. I'm going to give Drake the benefit of the doubt until more information comes out. You guys let me know what you think and stay tuned because I'm going to be dropping a full video of damn near every example we have of Drake not just getting someone to ghostwrite his songs, but actually taking bars of songs that already existed and using them on his own record, sometimes not even crediting the person who initially spat those bars, and a lot of times getting into disputes because of that. He has a long history of this. Beyond just, having people pen up his work in the OVO sweatshop, he's been taking a lot of other people's work as well. Now, if you've been taking the time to listen to me, I definitely appreciate you. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.